everyone. Welcome to day 3 of our November series. And good, whatever moment of the day you are enjoying on your time zones. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or even very, very early good morning to those of you joining us from the part of the world when it's already Friday. My name is Minola Jacques. I will be your co host for the next hour or so. We have Jessa backstage, and I also need to ask for your patience in advance. I have two Frenchies sleeping right next to me, so if you hear enthusiastic snoring or talking, well, we all do the best we can. Today, we will be spending our time together talking about architecting systems of support, especially for business leaders and direct managers. We have an amazing lineup of speakers. So, Jessa, could you just please bring them up so people don't have to take my word for it? And in the meantime, I will continue to welcome everybody in our audience. And please do drop us a short note. Let us, first and foremost, let us know where you're connecting from. It's a joy, and we're always, always so curious to see where Hacking HR goes around the world with our conversations. And also, I couldn't any more warmly recommend that you engage with this conversation just as much as our speakers. So do drop your thoughts and your answers in the chat. Consider all the questions just as much yours as it is our panels. And let us know how you experience the systems of support throughout your organizations. And just before we are flooded with questions, whether this is recorded, yes, this conversation is being recorded. And then you can always go back and review it and enjoy it and maybe even recommend it either from our LinkedIn space or hackinghrlab.io. Now, Hacking HR hours being shorter than regular hours, I will try to make the most out of our time today. And let's get started. The intro round is quite simple, and you are all by now Hacking HR friends and veterans, and you know the drill. I will pass the e-mic around as you appear on my screen clockwise. And could you just kindly shortly introduce yourselves and also share with us what exactly makes this topic so special to you that you decided to make time and come here and spend some time with us. So, Anna, welcome. It's a joy to see you. It's been a while.
Thank you very much for having me here. I mean, this topic speaks to my heart. First of all, let me tell you that my name is Anna. My last name is Mamalaki, and I'm calling from the San Francisco Bay Area. My work is very much to support organizations to transform themselves to a state that are much more efficient and much more welcoming the talent within their organizations, become their better selves, let's say. So that's why the specific topic speaks to my heart, because it's so much related to the work that I do every day.
Wonderful. Thank you. Alison, I think it's painfully early good morning for you.
No, it's in the middle of the night. I started sleep. I've woken up. I'll go back to sleep when it's over.
Sounds like a very agile setup for you.
Definitely. So my name is Alison Eyring, and I'm in Singapore, and I'm the founder and CEO of Prodigy. Prodigy is a SaaS technology that enables systemic leader, team, and organization effectiveness. What I loved about this is because I love the word architecture. And when I saw this, it's so wonderful because in Spanish you say la arquitectura, right? And like you would talk about that in thinking about organization design, whereas in English we'll always say design. So I actually just love that because I love the idea of an architecture that enables systemic effectiveness. That's what our software does. And so I connected with it. I loved it.
What a wonderful insight. Thank you so much. Julia, good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm from Argentina, so this is where I'm sharing this time with you. I'm so happy. And the reason why I joined this panel is because I've been working for almost 20 years in the technology industry, and I have seen so far too many good and not so good ways of supporting or not leaders and direct managers in so many aspects, you know. So I'm really interested in the consistency between what we say and the culture that we try to build and what we do for our people.
Sounds wonderful. And please tell me I didn't do a Starbucks moment. Is it Julia or Julia? How do you go with your name?
It's Julia because of
Julia.
my country of residence, but it's okay if you call me Julia. It's okay.
I will do my best and practice my Spanish if that's okay with you. Thank
Of
you.
course.
Francesca, good to see you. Welcome to our panel.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here. I'm Francesca Molinari. I'm a human resources leader of many years and 5-time chief people officer, currently chief people officer at Margo. I'm based in the Philadelphia suburbs. Great to see a couple of people. I see Cliff from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and a few others from the Philadelphia area. Great to see you, and a few New Yorkers as well, New York born and bred. What inspired me today, like Allison, was really a word. The word I kind of clung on to was systems of support. And so I think very often we might think about a tool or a one and done way to support a business leader or a manager, but the most effective support I've seen and that I've architected or designed together with my teams has really been very holistic. And I like to think about things systemically. I think we get better outcomes that way. So very much like Allison, it was a unique approach to this title that really attracted me today. Pleased to be here.
Wonderful. It's been such a gloomy week in Switzerland this week. And what really gave me a bit of sunshine were the conversations in Hacking HR. And just from this round of introductions, I feel already my mind being hugged and warmed up. So thank you. Now, I did make a few mental post-its with architecture, with systems. But before we dive deeper into the topic, I would really invite you to spend a few minutes and look at support. I would imagine that with everything that has been happening over the past years and with everything that we are looking into, moving into the future, support can be interpreted in so many ways. And I'm almost tempted to say it's one of those self-explanatory words. But if we really look at what people expect from it and what people, how people use it, it can be quite different. So practicing my Spanish here, Julia, would you mind leading us into a round of answers around how has support changed in meaning over the past years?
Well, I think that first of all, I have seen a dramatic change in what we understand by support. I think at the beginning, it was more related with supporting people to do their job. But then we started to understand that support is much more than that. And it's also about our whole self and what we are living right now, what is going on outside our job. And then, of course, with the pandemic, we had to change once again how we do our approach to support. How can we replace the face-to-face contact and the coffee conversations and the office moments that we used to have to something that now it's so usual for all of us, but 3 or 4 years ago there were some things that we could not think in doing them remotely. So I think that I have seen these two main changes: what we understand by support and then how we run it.
And now the unmuting competition is officially open. Let's see who has the quickest fingers. Tension. Francesca.
Three things come to mind when I think about how support has evolved over the years in our line of work. The first is when I began in the human resources space, it was more about human resources, doing for managers versus supporting. So I think about the early days of hiring. I started my career in retail. I was telling someone just yesterday, I would hire and then put the person out on the sales floor. The manager had no involvement, in the hiring process. Similarly, when someone was to be exited, you kind of went up to personnel, and the person was kind of dispositioned and dealt with it. And so I think over the years, and very excitingly and rightly, more and more has been placed in the manager's hands. A good coach will pick his or her own team, will coach his or her own team, will make compensation decisions. And so I think the shift from doing to support has been a really good and positive one, and a trend we should dial into and continue. The next thing I think about is, we've just talked about it a little bit, is kind of that movement of bringing your whole self to work. When I started my career, our expression was check it at the door. So not only did you not bring your whole self to work, you didn't bring any of yourself to work, you brought your work to work, and everything else was quote unquote checked at the door. That has changed remarkably, but together with that has come the type of things that an organization is expected to support and wants to support and needs to support. It used to be your personal life is your personal life, and you wouldn't dare think about bringing into your workplace things that might require support. And then the third thing is really this idea of things have come into our lives as human resources leaders in the past few years for which there is no playbook. So even the most forward-looking companies that have teams dedicated to looking around the corners and thinking about what might happen, I'll use COVID as an example, no organization that I know of was ready for the way things unfolded and knew how to react. And so we as an HR community in particular really had to demonstrate unprecedented agility. And I think the companies that did things well really relied on an open source methodology, much like these conversations today. How can we learn from one another? It used to be you kept your secret sauce to yourself about how you handled things, and COVID amongst other things, and just a generational shift has really encouraged us to lean more on each other and share best practices, which I'm always excited to do and talk about.
Thank you. Let's see.
I just wanted very much to say that, emphasize what Francesca brought up, that the acknowledgement that support is needed, and that is a very important breakthrough that is happening the last years. And also the fact that it is needed throughout the hierarchical levels of the organization. Because in the past, for example, we could experience, let's say, coaching only the senior leaders, but now we can see the need of coaching more and more people within the organization. That is one thing that I would like to emphasize from the things that have been brought up, as well as the fact that now we see support a little bit more systemically than in the past, that support was being done very much ad hoc, at a lightning, let's say, speed and then darkness. But now it seems that we have much more systematic approach, and that is a big and important difference.
Alison.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I always go back to the research on engagement, that talks about the balancing of resources and demands. And I think that the one thing that's consistent through time is that demands always get higher. And so as demands get higher, and they've gotten higher on managers more than others, I think so much has fallen on them. So their needs for resources are even higher. And I think that's an area where maybe we have more of a gap today. Not because I think we actually are doing so much more to try to provide support, but I think that the demands are so much greater for anyone in any kind of a managerial role. I think they tend to be a little ignored. Like we talk a lot about employee experience, but when have you ever heard someone talk about manager experience? Where we sort of disrespect them and we say, oh, you're a leader or you're a manager. So I think that we really need to think about, how do we help to provide a balance with the demands and that they experience, because then we need them to be able to enable better things in the organization.
And one more proof that here at Hacking HR we go agile, not fragile. We welcome Cindy. So good to see you, Cindy. And we were just talking about how support has evolved over the past years, and the notion of support and the expectations of support. So if you can just briefly introduce yourself and then wrap this round of answers up.
Well, hello. Sorry I'm late. The world of HR, we always have incidents happen, and there's always fires to put out, especially right before you're going to get on a call or something, right? So my name is Sandy, and I am the HR manager for AAR. I've been doing HR for over 20 years, and I'm happy to be here. I love to share the what nots to do because I've learned a lot of those. And so that's what I'm here for here today, to share my little bit of knowledge that I have. And regarding support, I think nowadays, Addison was making a great point about, just how there's more pressure now on the managers. And so I believe that us as HR managers or HR in general, we need to equip them better. And I think that we don't equip them properly. And the equipment doesn't just need to come from us. I think that it also has to come from them in the sense of the willingness, because we can share and we can give them all the tools. But if they're not willing to learn, if they're not willing to be coached, that is not going to help them at all. So I think that we need to find a place and a common ground where they're willing to be coached and we're willing to help out, but they're also willing to go out and find their own resources, like listening to a podcast. It's not going to take much out of them, right? Or even read a book that's going to help them, because we know perhaps some of the areas that they need to work on, but a true leader is going to say, you know what? I know I personally need to work on this, and this as well. So I think just, helping them to learn and know to be transparent with themselves, even if they don't want to say what their areas of improvement are, I think goes a long way as well.
Thank you all. And Francesca, I loved your spoiler alert around systems. So yes, I am here to collect on that conversation, Candy. And can we just go a little bit deeper on that? How is the mindset, if you want, of thinking in terms of systems of support different from a framework comprising support tools and interventions?
Yeah, such a great question. And again, it's what really attracted me to this panel. I think regardless of the circumstance we're looking to support, it could be something very positive, like a new executive or manager onboarding into our organization. It could be something very challenging. A reduction in force is probably, one of the widest actions we'll take as HR leaders with so many people who are affected, both those actually affected by the reduction in force and, those who are part of the remaining organization. It's been shocking to me in the last year plus, the poorly, in my view, the poor approach to reductions in force, this kind of lack of systems, the idea that you get an email, we've all read the horror stories, right? Someone's, new mom nursing a baby in the middle of a night, all of a sudden can't get into her systems or gets something from her manager. That's the very opposite of what I think a great system of support looks like. So to me, the difference is, a set of tools or a tool, here's your guide, manager, to doing whatever, versus really thinking about who needs to know about this thing, positive or negative, that needs to happen. What's the 360-degree view of who those individuals are? What's the impact on them? What can myself or the team do to support that person, not only leading up to whatever the thing is, but post the action. So again, positive or negative, it might be an onboarding, it might be a reduction in force, it might be a change of a performance management, whatever the thing is. I think thinking about the pre-work, the action itself, and then the post-action follow-up is where we can really differentiate ourselves in terms of truly providing good support versus just putting something on an intranet site or having a training and say, here's your support. What are we doing ahead of time to make sure people feel prepared? What are we doing real time to make sure while things are unfolding, we are accessible? And what are we doing afterwards to answer questions and to deal with the unexpected? Because anytime we do a thing in our line of work, there is always the unexpected. I suspect that Cindy might have a few stories about things that have happened. I certainly do, as well. And we can't prepare for the unexpected, but we have to be communicative and focused and following up to make sure that when things didn't go as planned, and they will, that we are ready to deal with trailing, issues and communications as needed.
Hannah.
I would like very much to stay on the path that Francesca has started. And as Alison has mentioned, really, it is the architecting part that matters a lot. And that's why I would like to stay very much on the systems by saying that one important element for providing the support to the leaders of organization is ensuring organizational clarity. And this organizational clarity is being ensured by having the performance metrics that will help the leaders understand what is needed from them, when and how. This also can really lead them to the right direction on how they can develop themselves, so they know what's needed or not needed and when. That is so much important. A goal-setting process also supports very well the whole clarity. I would like to say that these elements, which are very clearly system elements within an organization, are so much important. And when things happen, these can become the pylons, the things that will support them in any turbulence. That's what I wanted to say. I wanted to add, though, the fact that since we navigate a continuous change within organizations, we need to be there with systems of change management. We need to be there to support them on how to navigate change as well. And this is something that I can add during the flow of the discussion afterwards.
Julia.
Yeah, I would add in line with what Anna and Francesca said that the word architecture and systems bring me the word holistic, a holistic way of taking care of things. When I was thinking about this panel, I started thinking around the importance of being consistent between the tools and the systems that we create to support leaders with all the other aspects that we are doing within the organization. Like, for example, what behaviors do we recognize? What we prize, what we highlight, how we communicate not good news. All the things, in my opinion, should be really integrated. It's like some companies investing a lot in doing a great candidate experience and creating a hiring experience, really lovely, but then after crossing the door, the culture is completely different. This is the same thing. I think that if we are creating an architecture to support leaders and managers, then we also need to take care of all the other aspects.
So for me, architects would actually be foundation, right? What are the proper architecture needs the proper foundation. So I think each company is very different, and I think each manager, supervisor, executive is very different. And I think that it's not a one size fits all for the individuals. We might have a set culture that perhaps is either right or wrong. And so we need to take the time to be able to actually fix our foundation so that we can actually change that negative to a positive. And I think that regarding the individuals, what I tend to do a little bit more to support them is I tend to, I learn as an executive admin and as an administrative assistant to know your audience. So when I deliver feedback to one of these managers, supervisors, executives, I know how best to deliver it to them so that they can receive it properly. So I think that when we're looking to do the supporting, I think that we need to cater it to that particular individual. So I tend to do the trainings in where I literally customize it to each one of my managers. And is it time consuming? Absolutely. But it definitely, I think they're able to get more out of it when it's customized to them than when I try to do a one size fits all. Yes, we can do these are proper, interviewing questions. These are inappropriate interviewing questions, right? We can do those generic ones. But I think that to help them and truly really support them and being able to actually help them is if we customize and we treat them like they're, and we give them the proper foundation for each one of them individually.
I was just going to add something because somebody said something in the chat that I loved about enabling managers to be able to make decisions and have autonomy. And I really believe in the importance of agency and control and ownership. And so that's sort of an interesting aspect of a systemic solution, because you think a systemic solution is you're integrating capabilities and technology and workflows. And so you think about it not necessarily being individualistic as well. But we, in our system, we have a lot of data from thousands and thousands of managers all over the world. And one of the things that we have is information about what the challenges are. Because the users they identify what their role level is, and then they'll identify key challenges, and then the system's using that because it's giving them recommendations and suggesting things that they can do and guiding them. But it's very interesting because the role challenges are so different, but then they create this dynamic. So if you look at the very senior managers, like BU head, CEO, their key unique challenges are they're trying to accelerate growth, or they want to grow capabilities faster. And it's not about an individual skill. It's about a team or an organization capability. But as you go down to set consecutive levels, there's different unique challenges at each level. For the people manager, their biggest challenges are around developing themselves and others' capabilities, and dealing with and trying to maintain or improve resilience and well-being. So it's interesting because I don't think the top's going to slow down. They're going to continue to push. They're going to try to accelerate growth and transformation, and that's going to continue to put pressure on the individuals, and it really hits that people manager. But the thing, if you look across the role levels, what we see is that a consistent role challenge is the being able to work across groups to deliver outcomes or to deliver results. And I think that a lot of when we think about support, we tend to think very individualistically, like we do coaching or we do a program, we're doing things for individuals. And many of the pain points that managers experience aren't that. It's really about how do I get results working across groups of people? How do I get the pain away from that? Am I able to engage with diverse stakeholders? So that's one of the things that I think as we think about support, we should be thinking about how do we empower them to solve the unique problems they have at the level that they are, while at the same time creating capacity in the organization to solve the problems that they have.
Well, we are at the middle of our conversation, and I think we teased people for long enough with the difference of architecting over designing or building. So let's dive into that. How is architecting systems of support different from building or creating or designing? And Alison, I would be so surprised if anyone unmutes themselves before you do on this topic. So tell us a little bit more about why architecting so meaningfully to you?
Well, I mean, to me, it is a very systemic idea, right? And I think that when we think of support, we tend to be individualistic and episodic, and we think interventions. And I think that if we really want to think systemically, we have to think about the system. And a system includes workflows, data flows, ways of configuring different work groups, and all of those are solutions that we have to be thinking about if we want to try to support managers. And I think there's a tendency, like I know I'm in the software world, and you talk a lot about relieving pain versus vitamins. If I would do a survey, I'd say to everybody, do we want to give aspirin or vitamin? And everyone's going to vote for vitamin. But you go to an investor and they'll say, no. If you're building a vitamin, I'm not going to invest in you because no one's going to adopt your solution. And they know that people only adopt solutions when they take pain away. So I really believe that we have to understand what causes pain in the system, for the different players, and how do we relieve that? And that's how we liberate performance and sustained effectiveness over time.
Any other insights on the architecting meaning? Anna, yes, please.
I believe very much in what Alison has just said, and that's why in my work I utilize holistic models of organizational design, so that you really take into consideration all the different layers that affect the performance of the organization as a whole. So you really need to make sure that, as Alison has mentioned, not only the workflows really are in such a way that are not troublesome. So you really need to go out there and streamline processes, but also you need to make sure that all the things that are related to how the organization operates, for example, how your governance works, how your structure is being implemented, how the people policies and processes are being interwoven within that structure. What is the context within the organization that the people operate with? These are things that we might not at first sight experience, but we do experience them, and they affect how an organization operates, and eventually they support or not support the leaders. So how an organization is being structured, how it operates, and how it's being governed is very much part of supporting or not supporting the leaders.
Yeah, I see a lot of thoughtful nodding on the screen. Yeah. Anything else to add? No? Here's another one. And I was listening to you and I was thinking it might be childish or simplistic question, but this is what I have in mind at the moment. So I might just as well go forward and ask it. How can people in people functions or in HR functions or whatever we call this function in an organization, how can they know what are the support needs of the business leaders and direct managers? And Sandy, I heard your point about it's also about self-awareness and speaking up and owning your needs. I wonder, where is the sweet spot of that? Let's see where inspiration strikes. Yes, Julia.
Yeah, something that comes to my mind with this topic is sometimes the people teams are so dedicated to design something aligned with best practices, with trends, with podcasts, with new things and stuff that we are all in the community discussing about, but we are not where the things are happening. I'm not talking generally. I'm just saying sometimes I have seen this happening. So I think that for being accurate and knowing what is needed, and that need could not always be related with the more fancy thing and the more sophisticated thing. It's sit down and hear what's going on, which are the problems, try to focus on people, really trying to understand what's going on the field, instead of bringing nice tools and good programs and McKinsey and etc. So it's trying to find a middle point to understand what to design and to ensure that design is what the team and the organization is really needed.
I couldn't agree more. Julia, you made me smile so much with that. I think, step number one is ask. When someone's in a situation, they're a new manager, whatever the situation is, simply starting with what are the ways in which we can support you, I think is a great place to start. Now, fair enough point that not everyone is always self-aware or knows what's available or maybe even understands what it is you're asking, but it's certainly a way to start. And then I'd supplement that with, to Julia's excellent point, by being a part of the business, by knowing our leaders, by using our powers of observation and our intuition, we also need to bring to the table the suggestions and recommendations of things that might be helpful. Gee, I noticed this. Have you ever considered that? Or, gee, I've observed this has happened a few times. Is there a way I could help you potentially deal with this or that? And so it's asking, and I think it's observational and relational, and bringing to this table at least the conversation about what could be helpful support.
I completely agree with Francesca and Julia regarding, just getting to the root problem, and then kind of starting from there. I completely agree. Having one-on-ones with your managers, having one-on-ones with your executives, I think that goes a long way, because you're starting to build that rapport with them and you start building that comfort. And they're more willing to open up and tell you, hey, this is what I'm struggling, or this is what I'm seeing in my department, because sometimes they don't see it. They don't recognize, that they're struggling themselves. And it could be something as simple as maybe perhaps, they are in a grumpy mood and they don't even realize that they're in a grumpy mood, but you were able to catch on because you had that one-on-one with them. Hey, you okay? How's it going? How are you doing today? How are you feeling? What's on your mind today? So I think just establishing those very, sitting down and establishing those open lines of communication is very key to being able to provide the proper support for them.
If I may add, in this conversation, I would like to say that we need to provide, and we need to provide the conditions, the medium for the leaders and the employees as a whole, really, to be able to navigate themselves within the flows and the changes that come over. For that reason, we need to automate a lot of things. And thank God, I mean, that's why I am in an organization that promotes AI. I believe that technology is very much by our side right now. If we create the conditions for the leaders, they would not need to invent things. In that way, they can very much drive themselves on the tracks that have already been built for them. And that is so much important. I mean, they have so many things to take care of. They do not have to invent the wheel every time. So I do believe that we need to create the systems, the ways, the tools, the conditions. And I can give a practical example so that I'm not vaguely speaking. Employee engagement is an important thing. So in an organization, what we have done is that we created the whole systematic approach on how they can follow through on employee engagement every day, every week, every month, with the touch of a button. I mean, following through in a dashboard, how things are being done, the whole action plan, how it was implemented, what was the outcomes. And they could easily transmit and disseminate the communication coming out of that dashboard that we have created to the employees that were recipients of the actions. So if you really create the conditions, the leaders would very much have the autonomy, the empowerment to do their job much better.
Alison, you're on mute. Yeah.
I have to say, I forgot the question. I got totally distracted because Francesca's drinking wine. And I thought, why am I here at midnight drinking water? I wish I had a glass of wine.
Wait, in all fairness, just H2O in a fancy glass for the record.
I wish I had a glass of wine. Manola, tell me the question again.
Well, now I am distracted. The question was, how can we in people or HR functions really know what business leaders and direct managers need?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I already answered it. I definitely think we need data that helps us understand. I think it's great to ask questions. That's not very scalable. So, it really depends on how large or small your organization is. So I think the problem is sometimes we don't really know what we don't know. And some of the challenges that we have at work are so complex because it's so you have so many different things. So I really think that asking people about the challenges in their role is a really powerful way. It's like, what's hurting you? What's a problem? And I think that when folks in people functions, strategy functions, transformation, when they're an ally to those managers and helping them drive and have more impact, then they also create pull. And that creates more of that receptivity. I feel like that's really important.
I am very tempted to ask a question around skills and capabilities, because how we talked about systems of support and how we talked about architecting systems of support got me really curious what kind of skills and capabilities we need to develop, not just within HR, but within an organization to be able to do that. And you probably know this about me by now. I give out extra points for skills and capabilities that are quite, wow, I never thought about it. So not necessarily the usual suspects.
I'm going to get a point and take my mute off first this time. So when we have this use case for Prodigy, it's called Multiply Manager Impact. It's about, aligning. It's a way of using the software. It's around aligning teams and accelerating performance and development and amplifying culture. And one of the things that users do that managers will form a team. They do a team alignment survey. They'll do these sprints to improve team effectiveness. And so we have a lot of data on team capabilities. And then we have these two indices that are extracted. One is on psychological safety and the other is inclusion. And it's interesting. The lowest scoring team capability is it's called encouraging, and it's about the team getting better at getting better. And so it's like teams don't know how to do that. And that is a leadership issue. So team leaders, managers have to be able to enable their teams to get better. And if they can't, they're always sucked into this problem of this hub and spoke model of leadership, which drains their energy because they're always having to get one-on-one with everybody. But when they're really effective and they can drive the capabilities of the team to solve problems and to make decisions, then it liberates them to go and solve problems across groups. So that capability around getting better is one. The other capability that is really an interesting one is around proactive communication with stakeholders. So as a team, often we think about what's happening within the team, but we also are always doing ongoing research. And we find that capability of the team is the most highly correlated with individual motivation and commitment. So you don't think about that, right? But what that's saying is, so the teams that are the most engaged, proactively with their stakeholders are also the most committed in their roles. So kind of interesting. So we think we have to think about capabilities at the individual, the team, and the organization level. They don't just sit within an individual.
You had me at encouraging. That's a brilliant one. Let's see. Who wants their points? Their extra points? Anna.
Well, I want to build up on what Alison has brought up, and this proactive stakeholder engagement is so much important. I see really a need for the leaders build up their skills into driving change, how they can really navigate the waters of making change happen in a way that will have less friction and conflict if possible. That's why I would add to the mix of the capabilities the conflict resolution. Because it's not only stakeholder engagement, how they can really strategize and map out their stakeholders, what they do about it, how they plan really to engage them, the timeliness and the messaging, but also how they can resolve conflicts coming up with the stakeholders and within their own teams. Because friction can produce energy if it is being navigated the right way and you have the capabilities to do it.
Such a great point. Julia, please.
Something to add really short in terms of capabilities. In these days full of artificial intelligence, I think that we really need to pay attention to the power skills that won't be automated. You know, it's all about emotional intelligence. It's all about problem solving. It's all about dealing with conflict. So connecting the dots about what you have already said, I think that this is one of our main jobs in the people teams, to train, to develop, and to stop talking about soft skills, to start talking about power skills, because this will be the real difference between what we will be able to do or not and what will be replaced in our jobs or not.
Wow. Francesca, I see you nodding.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said so far. And I would wrap all of those skills and capabilities, around by culture, because you can have the skills and the abilities and the capability, but if your company culture is not one that is interested in supporting support systems that have been beautifully architected and designed, they simply will fail. I think about a need I saw many years ago as a chief people officer in a particular company I worked for, where we had a tremendous amount of managers that were promoted from within, with the idea that the person who was best at the job would be the best manager of the people who did that job. And that may or may not be the case, but certainly I've not found too many individuals who can go from individual contributor to manager of the same team without a system of support. So I proposed, a pretty low cost, very agile manager support program, et cetera. And the CEO looked at me and said, well, why would we do that? If the manager doesn't do a good job, we'll just fire them. So, all of the right intentions around designing a system of support in that particular environment just weren't going to work because it wasn't the culture of the CEO and hence the company to provide a system of support. The idea was you either do it or we'll just exit you and find another. And so as human resources leaders, I think a big part of thinking about our systems of support are making sure that they're really rooted in culture and values that support the support.
Yeah. Sandy, I saw you unmuted there for a second.
Yes. So I love what everybody said, and I'm going to actually take it to one of the comments in here. And it said, employees are wiser than we can imagine. So we should never put them beneath, but rather listen to them. Everyone has some form of experience or skill, right, that can be applied if we allow them to. Allow them to. And to me, that was like very, very key, right? We don't always take advantage of those skills like Julia was saying, right? So we need to bring it back into that and allowing our staff to shine where they're strongest. And let's open those lines of communication. Let's help them or help us understand where their strengths are so that we can actually be able to utilize those and not just utilize their strengths, but also their weaknesses. And in return, help them grow those weaknesses or there's areas of, of inexperience. I don't like calling them weaknesses. So I'm gonna go with areas of inexperience that we can help them grow in return for actually giving us their best version of them.
Thank you. Francesca, I see you unmuted. You want to add something?
Yeah, just a quick little top off on that. There's a saying I use when I work with software engineers a lot, like who's closest to the code. And that's always where the answers are. It's not, it's not in the ivory tower. It's not at the, if you want to know how to solve a customer or an employee or a software problem, ask those closest to the code. And that's where the answers lie. And I agree with what Cindy said. It's not just even allowing, I'd say encouraging and further proactively seeking out information for whatever, systems we're looking to architect, ask those closest to the code.
Please, Anna.
I just wanted to reinforce so much what is being discussed right now by Sandy and Francesca. A lot of times there is an abundance of capabilities of the employees within organization, and this being lost because of a bad manager or a manager that is so much busy that cannot utilize these wonderful capabilities that exist over there. And this is why we need to build a net that can really filter out and utilize these wonderful capabilities that exist over there. That's why we need the systems that will go beyond the busyness of the manager or perhaps a manager that doesn't care sometimes. So we really need to have the systems that will filter out these wonderful capabilities that exist over there and bring them up and be utilized so that the employees do not depend on individuals for that to be done.
That is so wonderful. And I have the feeling that we already had the mic drop moments in this round, but I will squeeze in one more question because I feel very strongly about this question. Now we are roughly about 5 minutes away from closing. I just want to be mindful for those people in the audience and including Jessa and myself as we roll into the next conversation. We have a couple of moments to switch between panels. But I made a promise that I will ask this question in every panel moving forward. If you would think about everything that we talked today as a game of dominoes through the lens of an HR function of one, where would you recommend people that they make the smallest change with the highest impact? I am sure that there are people in the audience who live in this reality of an HR function of one. And what we discussed so far might feel like work enough for a great big team. So how can we give them a little bit of an extra support? I will give you a few seconds to think about that. And in the interest of time, I will pass the e-mic around again. And thank everybody for being here. Hope I get to welcome you again in just a few short minutes. And let's start, Sandy, and go counterclockwise. Sandy, you're good to go? Give one advice, short advice for an HR function of one.
One step at a time. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't overthink it. One step at a time. One day at a time. 1 minute at a time. It's even a small, just planting a seed. Eventually that seed will sprout. It will bloom, right?
Yeah.
So just one small word, small thing will make a difference. So just take it one day at a time.
Thank you so very much, Sandy. Francesca.
Yeah, at first I'd say enjoy that. There's such a gift in being small and agile and being a team of, one or two. There's a gift in that. If you've ever tried to work through a large HR organization, you can spend more time trying to get alignment and feedback. So you have an agility and the opportunity to make an impact for all those, including myself. Right now, I'm in a very, very small company, and I'm relishing the opportunity to work quickly and agilely because there just isn't the bureaucracy or the layers and layers to work through. So enjoy it, take advantage of it, capitalize on it, and then think about where you can make the biggest business impact. So your time and resources are limited. What will make the biggest impact? And then finally, one of the people in the chat said it. It's a term I've used for a long time, but be a resource, but be human. That's what HR stands for. And that's really what we're called to be a human and be a resource.
Thank you so very much. Julia.
I would say focus on communication because of two things: to manage anxiety in the audience, in the company, because I'm imagining an HR function of one. It's not a big company, so to manage anxiety and what's going on and what will happen with A, B, and C, communication, and also for building trust. I would love to have like a weekly sync, 15 minutes with the people working there, sharing news, taking notes, and communicating the week after what's going on and what things are not going to be part of, let's say, this sprint, this week, this month. So focus on communicating.
Wonderful. Alison.
I would say have a lot of impact on how decisions are made about who gets to manage people.
Wow. Anna, bring us home.
It depends on the organization, but to my experience, one thing that has a small thing but has a giant impact is stakeholder management. Manage your stakeholders. That is A and Z.
So wonderful. Anna, Alison, Julia, Francesca, and Sandy. It was a joy to spend this short time with you today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope I will get to welcome you in a few minutes. Until then, do enjoy the music in between, and I hope you will have some fun with a bit of a chair dance routine. We have it in our panels. And then, Alison, get some good sleep. Francesca, change the beverage in that wonderful glass. And I will see all of you again. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Jessa. See you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second conversation in the third day of our November series. Welcome if you just joined. Welcome back if you followed us here from the previous conversation. My name is Minola Jacques. I will be your co-host for the next hour. With me is Jessa backstage, and also the two Frenchies are sleeping next to me. So if you hear happy snoring, do take it as a very positive feedback to our conversation. I already see people dropping notes, letting us know where in the world they are right now, taking time and curiosity to join us. Please do keep those comments coming. It's always so good to see that we are traveling around the world with all of you. So Jessa, please help me make the most out of a short hour. Bring the speakers on the screen. How wonderful to see all of you. And let's get started. Before we get that question over and over again, yes, this conversation is being recorded, and you can go back either to our LinkedIn space or hackinghrlab.io and check it out. Make notes recommended. We are always happy to get your support with spreading the joy of hacking HR. Now, the first round, easy. You all know the drill. A short round of introductions, and I am still under the joyful influence of our previous conversation when we talked about words and the power of words. So I will make Enrique proud and read the title of the panel, quite a mouthful. Empowering direct managers to become the drivers of people-first, business-oriented team culture. So first, a short introduction, and which one of the key words in this title made you most interested and committed to show up today for our conversation? And we will go clockwise as you appear on my screen. So, Mary, I know you were born ready.
Well, that's a great start. Thank you, and so wonderful to be here. I know we're always in good hands when Manola is in charge, leading the us through the conversation. And thank you for having me, and great to be here. Right, I am literally looking at the title because it is such a mouthful, so I am just referring back to it. Well, I'm gonna have to go for people first, Manola. You know that.
I'm shocked.
Yes. So that's my answer.
And tell us a little bit more about you.
Yes, sure. So a little bit about me. Where do I start? Well, again, great pleasure to be part of Hacking HR, a wonderful community that I've been privileged to be a part of for a few years now. I focus on people enablement in times of business transformation. So that's the space I've been operating in for the past 15 years, predominantly in the corporate world, but also a little bit in the startup world. I am currently heading up strategic capability development at Rolls-Royce. It's a new role, newly appointed to the role 5 months ago. With new CEO in charge of the organization, we have a 5-year transformation plan. We are in year 1, so great things ahead of us, and great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so very much. Melissa, it's good to see you on my screen. Welcome.
Hi, Manola. Thanks. I'm glad to be here. A little about me is I have a background in operational leadership and HR leadership, and I'm currently working as a leadership development coach. And I love working with frontline leaders and just helping people, leaders at all levels, level up their leadership and, do the best for their people. And the words out of the title that really got to me most are empowering managers, because I think that as much as a company says, a company can have people first as their values and they can talk it all day long, but if the immediate manager is not empowered to really live that out in their day and actually takes the steps to live that out in the day-to-day world with their team, it doesn't matter what the company says. So we've got to empower our managers to take that on.
Wonderful. Shari, good to see you. Always good to see you. Welcome. You're on mute.
It wouldn't be a virtual world unless somebody was on mute. My apologies. Great to see you, Manola, and hi everyone. My name is Shari Chernak. I'm based in Austin, Texas, and I am a consultant with Mercer focused on workforce, organizational, and HR transformation. Also, in past lives, have been a head of HR and also a culture and engagement COE leader. And I need to go with empowering as well. Having done a lot of work around change and culture transformation and other big transformational initiatives, managers are also often referred to as the frozen middle, which is never a good thing to have a frozen middle unless you're in an ice cream sandwich. So empowering is really about taking managers out of the kind of bind that they're in between leaders having giving them marching orders in certain circumstances, and their team members having real experiences that create dissonance with those marching orders and having to reconcile the two. So I think empowerment really goes to helping managers make change real and manageable and contextualized for their team so that they can really move the needle.
Wonderful. Lisa, it's so great to have you in this conversation. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Manola. Thank you for having me. Lisa Sanders. I am here in the San Francisco Bay Area. For the last 20 years, I've been doing COO, CFO, Chief People Officer roles in various companies, mostly in tech, some in manufacturing. I'm currently doing fractionated, all of those things for companies, mostly again in tech and a couple in manufacturing. I think that the word that, and I'm going to tack on to what was just said, is the word empowering was the one that came, immediately to mind for me. And I'm, as you know, me and Manola, we've done many of these together, empowering everyone in an organization, not just managers, to drive the company towards the team culture that is a people first focused, but also on outcomes, right? Like we all are responsible for outcomes, and trying to find that balance. And it's hard. It's not easy, especially for new managers. It's important to empower them and coach them and guide them to be successful on all of those areas. And that's a challenge.
Thank you so much. And I don't know if it was in your background, but I hear a very empowered cat expressing their opinions.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Push the door open. So, yep. Sorry.
Wonderful. It's always a joy to hear the life around the speakers. Thank you so much. Teddy, what a joy to have you with us today. Welcome.
Thank you, Minola, and it's always a joy to be on the panel with you. And hi to everybody joining us and to the panel here, my fellow panelists. My name is Terry Shundu. I'm based in Nairobi, Kenya. I am the Senior Director of People and Culture at Village Enterprise. And looking at the topic, I think, as everyone says, it's quite a mouthful, but empowering is the word that stood out for me, and more so empowering direct managers, because one of the things I've realized is that we promote people, we give them people to supervise, but then we don't empower them. We don't give them the skills that they need. We assume since they have been here in this organization for a while, it's a promotion so they can work their way around. So I think that really is what attracted me to join in. Yeah, so looking forward to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. And I so promise it's not a strategy to keep people more engaged and for longer in the conversation with us. But I do promise we will go back and pick up on empowering. But before that, I want to take a few minutes and really talk about what does it mean to have a people first and a business-oriented team culture. Sadly, and it almost seems, like, what do you mean we're in 2023 after a pandemic? But there are still organizations that see these two quite in tension with one another. So what does a team culture that is equally people first and business oriented look like, feel like, sound like? And I will let that question there and see who has been training for the unmuting competition. Melissa.
I love this topic. I agree with you. There's still seems to be very prevalent this idea that you can't be people first and ask people to do their job and hold them accountable to results for a business. And I do believe that both can equally be true. We can, be here for the results of the business, but also put our people first. And kind of the way I tend to look at that is, what are we giving to our people? How are we taking care of them? Do they have fair pay? Do they have fair benefits? Are we building relationships with them and developing them and really working with them to help them be better team members and better individuals? And at the end of the day, those things should result in employees that want to do more work, that want to do a good job. I think innately, most people want to do a good job. And those things help people want to be at their job and want to do their job well. So we follow up with accountability and setting expectations and goal setting, partnering with the individual for goal setting and setting expectations. And because we've built that relationship, we are okay giving that feedback and accountability that they need to provide the results that is part of their job. For me, that's how we find that balance, is we take care of our people and then they help us by taking care of their job and doing it well.
Just following on what Melissa said, is it Branson or somebody said that take care of the people and they'll take care of your customer. So even as we think about the business and the numbers and what we are bringing as an organization, it's really the people that deliver on that. So when we are talking about our people first, does the organization care about how I'm working, about me as an individual, and not just about what I am bringing, but does the organization care about me? And so when we look at people first and business oriented team culture, is that we are, yes, concerned. We have managers who take their time to understand each individual employee. They take care of their personal and professional needs, and they're looking out for them, even as they look at the numbers and what each employee is bringing on the table. So I would say it's really an all-round looking at both the individual and also what the people are bringing to the organization.
Shari.
I think one of the important elements in having and creating a people first culture is giving people the opportunity to shape the culture that they want to have. So I always say that culture is about business and people. It doesn't work if it is only about people, in the sense that it needs to move the needle from a business outcome standpoint. But the people who are closest to the work, to the customers, to each other, are the ones who need to be involved in identifying what the culture can be and what it needs to be relative to what it is. And giving people a role and giving them agency in shaping their culture will help them feel ownership and accountability and commitment, which are all really important to culture building.
Lisa, I saw you unmuted there for a few seconds. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to touch on what Terry said, that it's important to recognize the stage that your company is at, right? And whether or not you're able to support a program or an initiative to bring managers up, to empower them to be managers. I mean, how many of us have had people that have come to us and said, I want to be a manager? And, I have a rigorous reading list that the minute someone says that to me, I'm like, okay, here are 10 books you need to read, and we're going to meet every week. And I will tell you 80% of them in the end, they're like, yeah, no, this isn't really for me. It's good. Thanks. And they tap out, right? And sometimes I go to people and have in my career and have said, hey, I see something. Are you open to talking about it? Are you open to exploring the possibility of that? And most of them are completely blindsided by it because it's not something they've thought of. And the same thing happens, it's reading, it's spending time, it's growing that potential, right, for them to move into a management role. But if your company does not have the foundational culture that supports that from end to end, it's not an event, right? It's not a one-time, yay, here you go. Now you're a manager. Here's all your stuff. Go do that, right? It's a continuous support from beginning to exit, right? And so it's the life cycle with the company. And if you don't have those in place, and each company is going to be different, and the stage of that program or initiative is going to be different, but it's important that you have that well thought out for where you are today, right? Revisit it, augment it, but make sure you have an end-to-end solution for them to be successful and to thrive, right? You can't throw people into the deep end and go swim, figure it out. And if you don't, we're done, right? So I think it really comes down to the culture of the company and the maturity of it to be able to support that. And don't do it if you can't.
Well, Mary, you're in the hot seat of going last on this one.
I know, right? But again, everything that's been said really resonates, and maybe it's recency bias, but I'll tap into what Lisa just said around empowering the choice and within an organization where they I do take on a people leader role or not. I think that's a big component that's missing in many organizations, where people are given an opportunity in a safe, psychologically safe environment to trial and test whether this is really for me. Because to Lisa's earlier point, people have an idea of what leading people is. And especially people who like a little bit of power, they fancy, a little bit of that. But then reality kicks in, and particularly in a world where we are moving away from command and control type cultures, and granted in different organizations at different pace, but certainly that's what we are doing here at Rolls-Royce, for example. Okay, so we are trying through the transformation to evolve the culture of 117 years of legacy, great history, and no one can deny past successes, but there is an evolution that's needed in terms of ways of working and how the organization is structured and all that kind of stuff. And back to the point, empowering those decisions on the ground in our organizations, whereby people can make a better informed choice whether a people leadership role is really for me or not. That's something that we are also trying to address here as part of evolving our organization. So we want to create opportunities for people to actually tap in with one foot into the world of people leadership, and actually give them an open choice at the end of whatever the end looks like. Is this for you or is it not? Coupled with also the organization in a systemic way identifying potential future leaders as part of talent identification and succession planning, but so that that is a symbiotic and adult and grown-up piece in the organization. You're not being told because someone else identified that you may be a great people leader, but you also have a say in that conversation. And let me just finish the point on the end is, if you say no at the end of it, there are no negative connotations aligned to that. It doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're not capable. It just means you had a go, you had a shot, you tried and tested and experimented a little bit in a safe environment for you and for people around you, so we don't have too much collateral damage in the process. But no is also okay.
I'm going to add on to that really quickly, because I think you made a really, really good point, Mary. I have always said, and I stand in that today, moving into management is not a promotion.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Career change. It is not a promotion. So don't get that out of your head. If you think it's a promotion, it's not. It's a career change. Yes. And for some people, it's just not in their DNA. They don't, or they don't want to do that, right? Mm-hmm. So it really is important to understand that it's not a promotion. It's a complete shift.
Yes. You articulated it so well, Lisa. Thank you for saying this. But we are dealing with the aftermath of the post-industrial, of the industrial age, really, where that was the only way to go. If you wanted a little bit more money and you wanted, to maybe do new things or try something different or just go up, the traditional career ladder, it's just part of the deal. You have to inherit a team, whether you like it or not. And then maybe linking it back to the topic of our conversation today, you on a systemic level can do a million different things, and you can have any budget you want to try to build an empowerment pieces, right? But if on the ground, people who lead other people in an official capacity just literally do not want to do it, and is the last thing that they want to do day to day, it doesn't matter what we do on a systemic level, what carrots we give them, they just don't want to do it.
Yeah. People don't respond to carrots. That's,
Yeah.
that's the thing at the top.
Sure as well.
There's no carrots. Yeah, sorry. Though you can tangle that and nobody's
Yeah.
gonna.
So these last few insights reminded me of something that that we do in change work, where we ask people, are you deciding or are you sliding? Those two are two very, very different ways to show up in your accountability. Now, I will make honest on my promise. Let's talk a little bit about empowering and empowerment. And if I am not mistaken, it was in one of yesterday's panels when someone said that the word empowerment still rubs some people the wrong way because they see power as a net zero sum game. If you empower someone, you take some power away from me. So that is the first layer of my next question. How do you explain empowering? And also, I am interested, how is this work of empowering direct managers building on, but also how is it different from supporting them, coaching them, training them? What is empowering bringing that is special? And Shari, would you give it a try?
Sure. So I think empowering is about it's almost to me like, giving someone the access to the controls, if you will. So it gives people the ability to make decisions. It gives people the the permission and encouragement to act and to lead. And I think all of those things are different than training and support and coaching, which are all needed. They're almost the other side of the empowerment coin, because when you say to somebody who may not feel like they have power on the regular to lead, to make decisions, to guide their teams in certain directions, they may feel a little bit reluctant to act, or they may not have those muscles fully developed. So I think they go hand in hand, but empowerment is like flicking the switch and saying, okay, now you have control over these areas or these decisions or these activities where you may not have felt like you had it in the past, or you may not have known you had it in the past, or you may not have had it in the past. And here are all the ways that we're going to support you. This shouldn't feel like a scary moment. It should feel like an exciting moment and like the opportunity for you, the manager, to do things that, perhaps you didn't feel like you had the right to do within your organization.
Yeah, I'm going to tack onto that because the word empowerment, from Latin, it originates from the Latin roots of into, in, or powerful. Okay, we have to remember that the word empower has the word power in it, right? And when you are empowering someone to be successful in a role, a new role, whatever, you have to be careful. And all of us have probably experienced this. You give a little bit too much power to someone who doesn't know how to wield it, you're going to end up with a problem, right? So understand that empowering is, I think, more of a supporting. I think that's what we're talking about, right? More of supporting and nurturing and coaching and mentoring and all of that, as opposed to, giving power to someone and letting them, have at it, right? You have to be very careful of who you give that power to, right? It can destroy your culture. It can destroy your organization. It can, you could lead to huge turnover, and that's bad, right? So be careful when you empower and you give people power, that they're actually ready for it and they can do it.
Yes, and mix it, blended with also a message or whatever that would look like with, the age-old saying, with power comes responsibility and even accountability, I would say, because that's to your point, both Shari and Lisa. For me, that's where we've got that challenge and opportunity at the same time. How do you find balance on a systemic level in an organization? Who you empower, to what extent? I mean, because if you take it too far, then you are creating an organization where everyone flies solo and feels like every decision is just on me. And that can, again, it's a coin with two sides, right? On the one hand, maybe for small decisions, yeah, that's fine. But for bigger decisions, again, having a sole decision maker, that's, not a democratic or equitable way of running any business, right? And who does those checks and balances? I mean, again, you can take examples from anywhere in the world. I mean, executive coaches are also supervised, right? There is a supervision piece on the coaching world, right? There is the CEO of a company also needs to respond and to report to the board of the organization, right? So there is a level of oversight that I think needs to be there, because we ultimately are flawed humans. No one has knowledge about everything and anything. No one has a crystal ball to foresee all potential consequences of our decisions. And that's where the power of diverse teams and diversity of thinking also comes in, to make sure that any decisions that are being made are the best that we can possibly make for this moment in time with the information that we have.
Melissa, I saw you nodding vigorously.
Yeah, and I'd like to, I definitely agree that we need to make sure our leaders are prepared to be in a leadership position. But I'm also going to take a slightly different approach here, because I don't think that people really know that they haven't been a leader before. They don't really know what they're getting into until they actually are doing it. And we can read and go to, get all the degrees, we can do all the things, but that doesn't actually in action like make us a good leader, because we have to actually do it. We have to practice. We have to see what those difficult conversations feel like and how to, how our actions impact others. And so when I think about empowerment, I think about, as Sherry said, it is about giving people the ability to make decisions. And sometimes when we empower people to make decisions, we're giving them that responsibility. This is your decision to make, even if it's not right, right? Because how often is there an actual right or wrong? It might not be the way I would do it, but it could still work out well. But I'm empowering you to make this decision on your own. But I'm also creating, I'm training you and giving you the support that you need to be able to make a well-educated decision in the moment based on the information you have. But I'm also creating that psychological safety so that if you do fail, if this decision doesn't go well, we can talk about it and we'll work through it together. And that's how I'm going to help support you. So by empowering, I'm going to give them the responsibility of making the decision, but I'm also going to be there to help support through any challenges that arise while not taking the responsibility away from them. They still own that responsibility because I've empowered them to do that. But I'm here to support in the background and help them as much as possible.
Just riding on what Melissa said, and really also Mary and Lisa, is that when we look at empowering, yes, it's giving the autonomy, the power to make the decisions, but also it's important to clarify the level of decision making expected. And here the topic is really on direct managers with their direct teams to create a people-first, business-oriented team culture. If the leader, the manager is empowered to work with their team directly, that the team knows that I can go to my manager and they will give me an answer for this, or we can work through this, then it's easier. than to create that culture of accountability and responsibility, because the manager knows that I have the power to make decisions up to this level. So they don't have to consult, because they're looking at the numbers together. They're looking at metrics together with their team. They can make a decision when it comes to the business. And the team also knows that we can go to our manager, and he or she would actually guide us on what to do, because the leader or the manager is empowered. And so here we are looking at a manager who has authority when it comes to the people, how to handle, how they work, basic things, handling leave, when it comes now to the nitty-gritties, handling the leave applications, handling disciplinary issues, handling the day-to-day work, and ensuring that at the end of the day, we are still delivering as a team. When managers are empowered, then it gives them confidence in their role. And I think that's what, in this context, I would say empowering then supports the business at the end of the day, because a manager feels they have the power at their level to make the decisions that they need to make for their team and within their team.
Actually, David made a fantastic comment here. Can I just bring it in? To empower in a business sense isn't to provide powers, to provide education, experience, knowledge. And this is absolutely spot on. Well, in my mind. So David, thank you so much for this comment, because that is, again, for me, that's so important to say, that you're not being given, you cannot take the word literally. Maybe we need to think about, some linguistics here, but you're not literally given the power to be the sole decision maker of every single thing that happens every single day, and you're being given the power to decide for other people. You are given, I think Sherry made that point earlier, so that you are given the tools, the knowledge, the information, access to, so we are removing barriers as much as possible from every person's way in the organization. You've got your tools. Now you are empowered to decide how you want to use these tools day to day. How do you want to balance using these tools? So maybe this week we've got to be really transactional with the team, because we've got to deliver. There is no mercy. And this week is just going to be brutal. Okay. But maybe next week we shift that balance. We've done the graveyard shifts for a week. Now this week, let's, I don't know, go out for a beer, or let's do a different type of team meeting and we celebrate our successes, or let's bring a funny story to the meeting. Let's not talk about work for once, okay? And you've got these tools, and today this is the configuration I need. Next week, this is the configuration I need. That's where your power is.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
One with my hands as well.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you, David, for stepping up and co-facilitating as we are heading into, we're quite in the second half of our conversation. And I wanted to pick up on David's comment and also link it to what Lisa said, that, hey, becoming a manager is not a promotion, is a career shift. So linking these two together, here comes my next question to all of you. What would be some of the critical skills and capabilities that need to get developed for this empowerment to really be a feasible and sustainable and meaningful shift in someone's career? I said this in the previous panel as well, and I will say it again here. Extra points available for skills and capabilities that are really surprising. So not necessarily the usual suspects. And Melissa, I see you getting ready. Would you like to lead this one? Or Yeah, let's Melissa and
Sure.
then Lisa.
Some critical skills that really help managers. The biggest, I think, is really, there's the obvious ones, being able to have difficult conversations, knowing how to hold that balance of accountability, setting goals. But if we're thinking like outside of the norm, I would think about things like knowing yourself well. Like a really good self-awareness is the biggest key for a leader, knowing how we respond to events so that we can work with our own biases, work with our own natural responses so that we can show up the way we want to in the moment. And I think those are skills that are sometimes overlooked because those are hard things to teach, and it's a lot of inner work. And so it's not always something that is taught in leadership courses or leadership programs. But definitely that ability to give feedback, have empathy, while also setting goals are really big skill sets needed for new leaders.
Thank
Or for
you.
any leaders.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Yeah. So I always say that, for managers and people leaders, life is like a Jenga game, right? And we pull from experiences, right? We all do. You typically have a foundation that is provided to you through experiences that you build on, moving upwards and et cetera. But sometimes you forget the fact that you might need a larger footprint, right? And if you think about it, along the way, we take and pull from our experiences, right? Hopefully looking to move forward or upward. The challenge, though, is that you need to take those pieces out of your past to build your future, right? And in doing so, you weaken your foundation by not considering the weight of your future direction, and it depends on the stability of your experience, right? So I think that for a new manager or a leader, I would say work on expanding and broadening your experiences that you can tap into, right? Create that stronger foundation. Identify your core values, right? A lot of people don't do that. That's not work that they do, right? And it's very reflective work, right? Set meaningful goals for yourself, right? Cultivate a growth mindset. Again, expanding your experiences, right? Foster strong relationships with your entire organization, but in particular with your colleagues and your teams. And I would say, in conclusion, before moving up in your career, make sure you learn from your past lessons, right? And sometimes we don't. I do it a lot. I think back into my 20 plus years of doing this, and I think what there's good and bad, right? And you learn from both. But I often go back to it and go, well, in this situation, I don't know the answer. It's not coming to me. I'm going to pull from what I've learned over the years in good and bad experiences, right?
Shari.
I think the manager role is, the critical point at which people need to develop the ability to zoom in and zoom out. So on many different levels, zooming out to what the organization needs, zooming into what people need, zooming out to performance and zooming in on some of the the obstacles and enablers of performance. And so I agree, it is a very fundamental shift in, I have a task, I have a set of responsibilities. They may be varied, they may be recurrent, but this is my world. And then the manager role is really a shift from, this is my world to, I'm suddenly in the middle of multiple concentric circles where I've got, myself, my team, my organization, and I need to understand how all of those pieces interconnect and interrelate. And I may actually be that interconnection point between them all. So the ability to, think big and to really focus in is important. And I think something that people require training and support, and yes, empowerment as well to develop.
I would say it's important for leaders, especially the new managers, to understand the strengths that they bring to their role, because many times the team is looking at the leader to give direction, to provide clarity, to, like you're a new manager, your entire team is looking at you to see how will you perform, differently from the other manager that we had. So it's important for the leader or this new manager to understand their strengths, their weaknesses. What are the opportunities that they have? What do they need to build so that they can better support the team? Because now they're not just a follower, but they are also giving direction as a leader. And so I would say coaching is one of the skills that really a manager needs, but I would say it's important for the leader to understand themselves. I think Melissa talked about that, self-awareness, and have that self-leadership first, knowing what you bring as a leader, what you have strengths in, because as I always say, and I've said it here before, that you don't have all the answers as a manager. And so the pressure to perform and the pressure to excel at your role sometimes can blind you to your weaknesses or to the things you need to work on. And so based on what Lisa said, looking at the back, how did you handle that different situations, and what skills I would say do you need to build to make you successful, to help you be successful as a new manager? Thank you.
The hot seat. I'll be fried chicken by the end of it. I would, to complement what Melissa and Shari and Lisa and Terry have said, I would say two things. Systems thinking. So do not underestimate the fact that you, when I say you, I'm speaking to our people leaders who joined, or future people leaders. You and your team, well, you are in a person in a system, or multiple systems around you in the organization. Your team is a system, and your team is also part of a bigger system. And in fact, a bigger system, which is made out of smaller systems, which ultimately is your organization. So on a micro and a macro level, day-to-day systems thinking is incredibly important because it's all connected. So how you set objectives for your team, will have an impact on how they will feel motivated, engaged, empowered, accountable, how they will be recognized and rewarded for it, whether they want to stay and for how long and all that stuff. So without laboring the point, again, lots and lots of resources available out there in the public domain about systems thinking. And the second thing, on the completely other side of the capability piece, I would say, because you, Manola, asked for non-obvious things, I would say sense of humor. I do think, based on my experiences and obviously my own frames of reference as I go through life, that the daily grind, we all know what it feels like, but we sometimes take ourselves just too seriously, I think, day to day. And particularly when times are really, really hard. I know that it's very difficult, but it's particularly when it's difficult is when you as a people leader play a role in stopping the madness. Even if you feel like you're breaking down inside, you need to find a way to do it for yourself as well. But that's a different conversation. But for your team, stop the madness and let's, change the energy, even if it's for 5 minutes. And that sense, and that's why I'm bringing sense of humor to the fore. Mm-hmm. I know sometimes it doesn't translate, in different cultures. So we also need to be mindful of that, right? When we work in global environments. But yeah, so systems thinking and sense of humor is my addition.
Wonderful. And Mary and I, we shared quite a few conversations within Hacking HR and outside of Hacking HR. And I know she's smiling because one of my favorite sayings is that humor is serious business. And there is an increasing amount of research saying that a sense of humor or a sense of lightheartedness really is one of the fastest, most authentic ways to tell someone that you're just as human as they are. Now, very, very conscious that we only have about 10 frustratingly short minutes left. I was wondering, who does what on this empowering direct manager's journey? So if I am a newly appointed direct manager, what should I do? What should I expect from HR? What should I expect from my direct manager? What should I expect from my team? So if we can have a round of value dense, please hear short, powerful statements. I would really love to understand who does what, which sounds just a bit more friendlier than a racy for the empowering journey. Let's see who leads us into this. Yeah, please, Shari.
Sure. I think, organizations vary. So in terms of what they offer to managers in terms of their empowerment and the path to empowerment, it differs. And so I think it's important to understand that. And then it becomes a little bit of a combination of what does the organization offer? What do I get already or need to request from my manager? And then who are the people around me, mentors, peers in the role, people that I can look to for support and for inspiration. And then I think there's also a self development responsibility. So what are my gaps in feeling empowered and acting on that empowerment, and what do I need to do to close them? And then it almost creates a virtuous cycle where that manager can go back to all of those different stakeholders as appropriate, and get that support, ask questions, take on development opportunities and the like.
Mary, just so you're not roasted.
To be succinct, I would just maybe say, because, again, complex organizations, even small ones, can be complex. So what I would add at this point in the conversation is that for me, again, it's almost like we need to empower one another on the ground day to day. People need to empower one another. So if you are forging partnerships, in your business, because I don't know, you need to put a project team together and you need to bring in the right people with the right capabilities. And, you are looking for these people in different parts of the organization. Again, for me, that you help me, I help you kind of thing day to day in the organization. We're not working against each other. I mean, again, we should run a whole series, I think, around organizational politics. But again, maybe, at the risk of sounding naive, but the nirvana state for me is when people really get that, it's not your business at the end of the day. We're here, your personal private business. It's not about you. You are part of something bigger. You are one part of a living and breathing organism. So we need to work together. Like our body needs to all be in sync and working well together for me to be holistically healthy, physically, mentally, spiritually. And one thing breaks and I will feel it. And sometimes, when my nail breaks, I don't care that much, right? It doesn't hurt me that much. It doesn't impact my whole day. But when my heart has a problem, my whole body is really feeling it, right? So again, a little bit of that, and I'll stop now.
Thank you.
I'll jump in. So I think that it's, there are a lot of key, players in that, right? That contribute to that supportive, empowered environment, right? I think one of the things that's really important that people don't put enough emphasis on is creating a personal board of directors, right? I have one. I'm part of many of them. It is a place that I go for that support when I don't know the answer, or I have a question that I feel like I'm out of my swim lane, right? So that's a really important thing to put together at any point in your career. It doesn't mean you don't have to just be a manager or a leader. Start building that board, that personal board of directors, because they will be a resource for you in building that, the depth of your foundation, right? But we all play a part in it. I do think, however, most of it falls on the people team, right? Because we put these programs in place. I would say that any program that you put together, make sure that it resonates, right? That it makes sense. Don't just go roll something out because you think it sounds great, right? Make sure that you're surveying, interviewing, whatever, your teams to find out what they want, what do they feel like they need, right? Don't just pull it out of the air and because you think it's a great idea, right? Again, back to the company maturity, but build a personal board of directors. It can be incredibly empowering in your career.
That's an awesome advice. Terry.
Yeah, I like that building a personal board of directors. And also, I would just add that it's important to have really tied to peers, and what also Mary said, just knowing who are your peers at that level, and then who can you consult within the organization. And then I would say for the supervisor, as I think their role is important in that they provide feedback, having one-on-ones with this new manager, just to ensure they are clarifying what the expectations are, and they're providing the guidance that's needed to this new manager. And then for the people team, they need to provide the tools, add this new manager in, every place where they need to be, ensure they're getting the information they need to get at their level, so that they have the information and they have the knowledge that they need to succeed in their roles. Because many times, many don't, a number of them don't succeed because they don't have the knowledge. I think, as David said, we need to provide the knowledge and the experience. So that knowledge is important, ensuring they're in the right room, listening to the right information. They have the information they need also to empower their team while they're, still trying to learn and grow in their role. Thank you.
To expand upon a little bit about what Terry said there, I agree with the providing expectations a lot. And I think when it comes to empowering direct managers, one of the areas where we can get caught sometimes is maybe we haven't set clear expectations about where they are empowered and where they are not. And so I think that empowering, letting managers know you are empowered to create a people-first culture. You are empowered to create a business, here are the results that you need to achieve. And you are empowered to do what works for your team to achieve both of those things. So understanding those things, but then understanding where's the line. Okay, you're empowered to engage with your team, to create, what you need to do to create a people-first culture. But here's when you do need to consult me. I'm going to be here for you whenever you need me, and I'm going to help you and support you. But here's the times when I need you to know that you definitely need to consult me. HR needs to come in on specific areas. And because not every new leader knows, especially I'm talking specifically new leaders, but sometimes older, more experienced leaders as well, don't always know exactly where HR wants to come into the conversation. Especially when we're getting into potential legal issues or, leave issues, things like that. It's important to bring in that experienced help, and not every leader knows that. So setting that expectation can be really important to helping a manager feel empowered So they know they are empowered to make decisions on the day-to-day basis, but they know where that line is and know where to bring in support and help.
This has been, please, Lisa.
Sorry, I'm just going to touch on what Melissa said because I think it's really important. Oftentimes people don't come to us, employees, because it's scary, right? Like, oh, we're not going to. And I think we've all probably had the situation where somebody's come into our office and said, well, I haven't told you yet, but it's been going on for 3 months. And you're like, what? How is it possible I didn't know about this? What are you talking about? So I think it's important for us as people leaders, operational leaders, whatever, that we create that safe space, right? For them to know that they can come to us and we're not going to immediately call the lawyer, right? That I think that's their initial, like, oh God, well then, legal gets involved or whatever, it becomes a big deal or, but that we're there to support them as well, right? That
Thank you.
come to us and say that, right?
Yeah, thank you so very much. I am conscious that we are 1 minute away from closing this up, but let's do a very, very short round. A simple question in between 1 to maximum 3 words, and I do mean words, verbs, nouns, adjectives, your choice. How would you describe an empowered direct manager? I will give you a few seconds to think about this. In the meantime, I will thank everybody for being here, either now live or later in the recording. I will thank Jessa for taking good care of us backstage. So 3 words, whatever words. We will start with Teddy, and then I will move the e-mic around. So Teddy.
They coach, they give feedback, and they recognize.
Thank you. I love how the give feedback is 1 word. Wonderful. Lisa, 3 words.
I would say the fostering strong relationships.
Wonderful. Shari.
Engaged, connected, and effective.
Wonderful. Melissa.
I'm going to use 1 word. I would say impactful.
Wow. And Mary.
I'll go 5 words, sorry, but feeling optimistic about the future.
Wonderful. Well, 5 words on one hand. We can accept this exception. Thank you everybody so much. Enjoy a wonderful rest of your day, of your week, a wonderful weekend, and I will see you next week for other amazing conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.